Good afternoon, everyone. We're excited to welcome you all to another edition of Synergy's ePanel webinar. I'm Jermaine Reyes. I'm the CEO and President of Synergy Market Research and Strategic Consultancy, and I will be your host and moderator for this webinar. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I just want to know where you are coming from, okay? In our previous webinars, we have participants or our audience comprised of also those coming from the US, from Japan. Uh, yeah, just say hi and press on the chat button down there. Okay. So you might be wondering why we've developed the ePanel webinar series. If you recall, in the earlier days of the quarantine, we felt a sense of panic all across the business industry. There were empty stares and questioning on how business can move forward. We were asking ourselves as well, how can we contribute um, in helping companies make sense out of what's happening, and how can we help them move forward in the next months? We've witnessed webinars that focused on programs for human resources, cash flow, and operations management, as well as in order to help the business continuity programs of companies. Well, those are the minimum imperatives, which are really good in themselves. And then one morning in the early days of April, we thought that we could help companies and brands focus on their customers, which is what we do best. This is through consumer insighting. Consumer insighting helps us understand our customers better. And this we know as Synergy's purpose to elevate consumer insighting to help companies better understand their customers in order to solve real world problems or customer pain points. Thus, the ePanel webinar was born, and we started to put together a complementing mix of experts who are leaders or have established careers on consulting uh, or consulting in certain fields, who can provide inspiration and learnings so we all can help each other on how to figure things out. Our webinar series starting from our second, explored and will explore the how-tos so that brands and businesses built through the years will still remain relevant through this hashtag business not usual days. We are now in MECQ here in Metro Manila and other parts of the country. But even in this phase, we have reason to believe that not all businesses have gone back to their pre-COVID situation, and we are still facing uncertainties. Marketing as we know it may be changing or may have changed because of the unprecedented situation that this pandemic has created. We cannot rely anymore on assumptions made in plans around our customers pre-COVID. So as Philip Kotler said in his recent writings, the role of companies is to make society a better place and enrich the lives of people. The challenge, therefore, is how to make brands meaningful in order to win their customers, more especially these days. Are we asking the right questions? Are we listening to our customers to understand them these days? Are we creating innovations that people need? How are brands evolving, or what are the brands doing to remain meaningful with their customers? Which of your brand values need to shine these hashtag business not usual days? As consumer needs have been stripped to the essentials during lockdown, and today it is said that it's not a battle for reach or ad spend, but of meaningful action. So we hope to explore all of these in our topic today, building meaningful brands through consumer insighting. Please treat our ePanel as conversation starters. We may not be able to provide all the answers, but we hope we can start conversations and keep it going in the next days or weeks. So before I introduce our esteemed panel of experts, would like to thank our partners who have made this ePanel webinar possible. Our big thanks to Futureproof, who is our co-presenter for this webinar. Thank you so much, Futureproof. Futureproof has been the partner of Synergy since we first launched the conference version of our seminar series entitled Consumer Insighting and Storytelling Conference. Futureproof innovates learning experiences such as this webinar of Synergy and they're behind the Alpha Mentorship Program. We also would like to thank our media partners who have been loyal supporters of Synergy's events. Thank you to Philippine Star and to Business World, to Lucien Ditioco, Jay Sarmiento, Criza Delelino, and Din Bison. Big thanks also to Marketing in Asia, or MIA, Jen Kahukam, if you're watching, for the continued support. And also would like to thank IMAP, yes, for the immense support that they've provided. Shout out to Yam Belicena and I, Ubaldo, and all of the board members. Thank you for the love and support. Now, our panelists today are leaders in their respective fields. The collective experience of our panelists span management, marketing, advertising, creatives, branding, strategic planning, trade management, research and insighting, innovations, design thinking, to name a few. We believe that our panelists complement each other, and we are so thankful that we have expert panelists coming from the essential industries, both food and non-food. We know that you are really busy, and we are so grateful for you guys being here. And of course, we are grateful for the creative and innovative experts that who are joining us to exercise our right brain thinking. So please help me welcome our panelists today, starting from Miss Margot Torres. Yay. Margot is the Managing Director of McDonald's Philippines with over 30 years of management and marketing experience, 15 with the Golden Arches. Our panelist is multi-awarded and one of the leading C-level executive, not just here in the Philippines, but in Asia. Malapit ng global, Margot. Some of the stripes that she deservedly earned are from Asia Marketing Federation as Women Marketing of the Year in 2019, as well as Campaign Asia's Women Leading Change Award in industry contribution. She was the first Tambuli Chief Marketing Officer of the Year from the University of Asia and the Pacific in 2011, awardee. No? In 2010, she received the Agora Award for Excellence in Marketing Management from the Philippine Marketing Association. She has been a two-time president of the Philippine Association of National Advertisers, or PANA, as we know, and the Internet Mobile Marketing Association of the Philippines, IMAP. She served as either head of jury or a jury herself in the Festival of Media Asia, Asian Marketing Effectiveness, and Spike's Jury for Creative Effectiveness across the recent years. Thank you for the love, Margot. Thank you. And also with us today is Miss Roshan Nandwani, who we had the pleasure of working with in BBDO. Hi, Roshan. She is the Executive Director for Transformation. As a marketing professional, she has over 12 years of experience in digital and integrated communications, having launched highly creative and effective campaigns, covering tasks such as strategy, project management, production, media, and analytics, handling projects from various industries such as fast-moving consumer goods, banking, tourism, quick service restaurants, pharmaceuticals, name it, actually. Roshan has handled it. Okay, telecommunications, transportation, etc. Currently leading the building and continuous enhancement of the digital offering for one of the most awarded creative agencies in the Philippines, transforming internal processes and services for current needs of the clients and future-proofing the business for eventual changes in the industry. Oh, and also I was also from BBDO in the past, in my past life. Okay, back in the 90s. Okay, now across so far our 3 sessions, we've had a panelist joining us from Singapore for the 3rd time. We want to say hello to someone from Singapore joining us, Mr. Martin Miguel de Jesus. Hi, Miggy. Miggy is currently the Regional Insights and Strategy Manager for P&G Asia Pacific for hair care, working across 7 different markets. He's also an incoming Senior Manager for P&G Philippines to still have the same function. He has local insights manager experience for the Philippines as well as Indonesia. His role includes working with multiple retailers to co-develop customer and sales strategies. As the regional Insights and Strategy Manager for consumer demands across 7 different markets. Miggy had his the greatest part of his work talking to consumers, and he's blessed to have learned from over 150 plus consumer types across 7 nationalities. And last but not the least, we are fortunate to have with us someone who is a constant in Synergy events, Mr. Miguel Aranaz. Hey, hi, Miguel. He's currently the managing partner for Ignite House of Innovation and an alumnus of D School Stanford University. Prior to Ignite, advertising creative and serial entrepreneur. In an attempt to save one of his businesses, he ventured into studying design thinking both in Stanford D School and IDOU. The mindsets and practices in his professional career have since been anchored on the following words: problem solving is listening. As an innovation strategist, he explored the intersections between business, design, technology, and human experiences to create impactful customer experiences in the banking, power, telco, media, FMCG, and retail industries. He is also a part-time educator at Enderan colleges. So again, before we start, I just wanted to share a few guidelines so we make this webinar more interactive. So as a webinar attendee, your microphones will be on mute by default. And if you get disconnected, as well as if our panelists get disconnected, we can just please click back on the webinar link that was sent to you so you can come back in. We encourage you to ask questions. Please use the Q&A button found at the bottom center of your Zoom dashboard to raise questions to the panel so we can refer to this during the Q&A portion. Okay, so we will refer to the questions in the Q&A. If you just want to chat, use the chat button. So we have enabled the chat functionality so you can share your comments on the topic. Okay, so without further ado, here to give us inspiration on how they are turning, naku, super busy tong taon to. But we are so grateful because we have 2 panelists coming from the essential industries. I know you guys are so busy, but we are looking forward for your inspiration to our viewers and attendees today. Here to give us inspiration on how to turn adversity into inspiring opportunities, please help me welcome fellow marketeers and business owners, Miss Margot Torres. Margot, please take it away. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Jermaine, for inviting us. McDonald's has actually stayed open ever since the community quarantine because to us it is a public service to make our food available. In the beginning, about 70% of our stores were closed, but we continued to operate with about 30%. And then it slowly increased. Now we have about 85% of our stores open. Of course, we still serve delivery, drive-through, and takeout, and dine-in is still not allowed. Moving on, I'm not sure who's going to share my slides. Okay, there we go. So I promise you today that I give you an update on what we've been doing for brand McDonald's, and then I will be sharing about 5 insights. Okay, so what started as a health crisis, we all know that, exploded already into a humanitarian crisis. It quickly became an unprecedented economic crisis, compounded actually in this day and age by the spread of information and misinformation because of social media. And I'm sure it has impacted your businesses as it has ours. In early March, our team developed a business continuity planning framework. We called a lot of learnings from consultants like the Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, our agency partners, and Google. And this is the framework. So the first stage is a response stage. And this is really how we respond to the crisis, especially during the quarantine. it's important that we stay agile because there's so many developments practically every week at a national and a local level when it comes to government. So let's just take this stage as the first half of 2020, depending on how the developments progress. The next stage is the recovery stage, and this is post quarantine. We project this to be about the second half of 2020, but we're already seeing that some of our plans in the recovery stage are already starting even in the response stage to protect the brand and the business. The rebound stage is next, and this is the period when we see demand increase. So sales kind of gets closer to pre-COVID levels, and we forecast this to be 2021. Fingers crossed, it should happen sooner, maybe November this year. And finally, the renewal stage, and this is the time when normalcy is achieved. But of course, we all know that the definition of normal may be completely different from how it was pre-COVID, and this will take place 2022 to 2023. So let me just share what we've done in the response phase. The first thing we actually did was equip our stores with a playbook, making sure that our already stringent safety standards were even further reinforced, from hand washing to sanitation, temperature checks, wearing of masks, etc. We also innovated with no-touch delivery, which we introduced before the ECQ was even imposed. We've innovated that further with the help of our third-party operators, Food Panda and Grab Foods. In fact, we already have a pick-up option available. We even went as far as selling our raw product, first in our stores, now in supermarkets of Save More and Walter Mart, because we knew that consumers needed food to be available, and we're running out already of options in the groceries. For our employees, we really maximized work from home. We've set up an open university just for the upskilling and to make sure our employees stay productive. Then, of course, our contribution to the community through food donations. So I mentioned earlier that we had closed about 70% of our stores at the start, but we did open a few kitchens just to be able to cook the meals and donate this for frontliners and barangays in need. So I know the visual shows that we served 100,000 meals. That's in the response phase. But at this point, we've already served about 216,000 meals. So I also want to thank our partners there, Metrobank and Coca-Cola, and Angkas Foods, who have really helped make this happen. So in the recovery phase, we also have actually a recovery playbook. And in this recovery playbook, we are really looking at dine-in being available. And so we've implemented a lot of physical distancing guidelines on top of what we already have as safety measures. So I don't know if you're able to see, but we already have foot markings where you stand. We've also labeled some of the tables where you cannot sit and where you can sit. So we are preparing for that. In the rebound and renewal stage, I think for everybody, we need to understand the themes that are happening for the consumer. We're already anticipating that eating at home will be more prevalent than out of home. Preferred channels have been delivery, drive-through, and takeout. Social distancing will really be a norm, especially in public places like malls. E-commerce is going to grow. Cashless will enable that. And generally, there is an economic downturn, so we're expecting a trade-down behavior. So to summarize this, I thought I'd share our 6H framework, which actually helps us understand what's happening with the consumer. So starting with humanity, we all know that this pandemic is really a shattering experience, and it's made us question everything, forced us to realize what's truly important when it comes to life. And that's why it's important to know this and how it impacts your brand and your business and how you should respond. So here are some themes to consider, starting with health. Health is probably the most important thing now. It means staying strong, living healthy, eating healthy, because you need to fight the virus. It's about safety, hygiene, and cleanliness are becoming minimum expectations from different establishments. The other H is home. And the home actually has been the central focus, especially during the quarantine. It's actually led us to appreciate its primary importance in our life. It's going to be and will be the fulcrum and central hub in a person's life. So accessibility to and from the home is a basic need. And I think this is where digital plays a critical role as well as delivery. Hardship, uh, with all the economic downturn, there will be financial pressure, tightening of belts. So the importance of affordability and value will really help in the budgeting of the consumer. Then hope is really a collective sentiment of a community. And while we brave through this crisis, collectively, we become stronger. And I think your brand has a role to play here in really building brand trust. And finally, happiness, which we all know is part of the Filipino psyche. And for brand McDonald's in particular, our purpose is to deliver feel-good moments. And again, this is an opportunity for all brands to provide happiness to their consumer. So at this point, I want to share the 5 insights coming from the 6H framework. Let's start with health. The insight is, and I think it's better said in Filipino, kapag panatag ang kalooban mo, hindi ka natatakot. And actually, we can do a lot of things. The frills that we used to do may not be important anymore. And it goes back to fundamental things. It's strange, but for McDonald's, we've always been very obsessed with food quality, food safety, cleanliness. But we never really talked about it. And now what we do fundamentally, what we train our people to do has become very important. So you'll see here that we did a clean o'clock just to remind people, and we've actually doubled the hand washing procedure from how it was before. And then I shared earlier about our no-touch McDelivery. That's extended to no-touch drive-through, no-touch takeout counter, and no-touch kiosks. So the second H is home, and the insight here is nothing compares to the comfort of home. And I think in uncertain times like this, we really get our security, emotional security from the home, whether it's home cooked meals, as well as from, of course, the loved ones around us. Although the cook it yourself packs was really a tactical promotion on the part of McDonald's, it's really making it available at the time in our drive-thru because people didn't want to go through a supermarket kasi mas maraming tao. But here, if they drive through, they're in the safe confines of their car, and they were still able to get chicken, nuggets that they could cook at home. And then later on, of course, we made this available in supermarkets. And then I thought I'd just share the video of what we did for Mother's Day, which really depended on also an insight about what was happening during the lockdown when it comes to families and the relationship of the mom to her children. So this has already garnered 12 million views and counting. Actually, it took us about 12 days to produce this video. So if we can shift to the video, is it available?
Na-lockdown tayo, ma. Magkasama tayo 24/7.
Good
Ano ba yan?
morning!
Sabi ko. Wala nang gimmick. Wala yung tropa. Na-lockdown tayo, ma. Dati kanya-kanya tayo. May sariling mundo ako. Ikaw rin merong sayo. Pero ito, araw-gabi, bahay lang tayo. Na-lockdown tayo, ma. At lalo kitang nakilala. Gamer ka na pala. Dancer at singer din. May tinatago kang galing. Madasalin ka pa rin. Pero bungis-ngis ka nga pala. Magaling ka pa rin magluto. Pero mas magaling ka nang magpa-deliver. Kasi kailangan mo ng oras mag-zumba. Na-lockdown tayo, ma. At lalo kitang nakilala. Mahal na mahal mo talaga kami. Balik-baliktarin man ng mundo. Gagawin mo lahat. Maalagaan lang kami. Na-lockdown tayo, ma. Buong buhay ko yan aalalahanin. At buong buhay kong sasabihin, mahal na mahal kita, ma.
So moving on now to the third insight, and this combines both home and health. I actually needed delivery before because I had a busy lifestyle and I was time starved, and so delivery was a convenient solution. But now, I need it because I want to enjoy the food in the safe confines of my home. I hope you noticed that there was a nuance. Delivery is still relevant, especially for our business, but we needed to recognize the change when it comes to the consumer need. So prior to COVID, we actually prioritized digital innovation. That's why we focused on digital for delivery. We introduced cashless for our brand. And we know that will still remain relevant post-COVID, maybe more than ever. Okay, but again, it's important to recognize that the change may not have happened in the solution, but in the consumer need. So I think anything no touch is going to resonate with consumers. So the fourth insight I want to share is related to hardship. I used to look for what's sulit, but now I need to look for what's actually fits my budget, what's mura, affordable. We know that the economic recession, earlier I mentioned that they will trade down. Hirap na rin yung mga tao. They'll tighten their belts. Value also has been part of the brand's DNA. We've always talked about value for money. We've always done promotions and discounts. But again, recognize the shift in the consumer mindset. Before, they will look for something, value for money, something sulit, something that will give them more for their money. Now, they don't have a lot of money. And therefore, you need to give them that will fit their budget. And finally, on the fifth insight on hope, this is really about uplifting others and helping. I think we all believe that when you contribute to the community, as a community, therefore, we become stronger. So again, I wanted to thank our partners for McDonald's Kindness Kitchen and all of you who had helped and donated to RMHC, as we have already been able to serve 216,000 meals. So let me end with this beautiful concept. It was actually introduced by a Franciscan friar, and this article was shared to me by my former boss from Unilever. It is on a concept called liminal space. It is actually a state of in-between. It's like the feeling after giving birth to your first child, if there are moms out there and not knowing what's next. Or maybe it's like moving on to a new job or a new place. You're both anxious, but you're excited to learn and move on. And it's really a feeling of ambiguity. Personally, I enjoy that feeling of ambiguity. I call it positive discomfort. And despite that discomfort, you know something good will come out of it. Just read the words that I highlighted in bold. Such beautiful language and thought that the vulnerability and openness of liminal space allows room for something genuinely new to happen. And I think it's because we're teachable now, because we were really humbled by this pandemic. So we're all in a state of waiting, but I think we are all optimistic that we will reach a better point and a happier place. So thank you everybody for listening.
Yes, thank you so much, Margot. There's so many learnings in Margot's presentation, but I think also the strength of the messaging of what you launched last in during Mother's Day, yung na lockdown tayo ma. I think it weaves together a lot of messages. That's hope, that's happiness. Your 6H, I see all of those in that particular uh, advertising that you have developed, and very strong message that tied everything together. Kasi nandun yung home, no? And then there's that discovery of our humanness, but also the hope that this pandemic is going to provide all of us. Maganda yung kanyang messaging. So many rich learnings. I think for starters, agility is very important for us to have developed. I hope we have been agile enough. Uh, and I like also the ending naman is the liminal space. It allows for us to discover. There's that ambiguity nga that we have in this pandemic, but because of there's that positive optimism that one can develop out of this ambiguity. Ayan. So, Margot, maybe we can get one question muna here. Okay. Allow me to ask the question of Ria Liza Canlas. How did McDonald's cope with the decreased sales? One might be, do you retrench workers? Very good video din daw.
Thank you for the comments and for sharing your love on the video. It's a difficult time, I think, for a lot of businesses. So first of all, with the closure, in the beginning, the crew that didn't work, we were still able to assist them financially. So kahit na no work, no pay, nakatulong pa rin kami sa kanila. But as the quarantine extended, it became more challenging. So we had to do more creative ways, whether it is advancing a 13th month or monetizing their leaves or having them use their leaves. So these are all, of course, advice we're also getting from the DOLE, all within the labor code. Now, with about 85% open by June, we will be 95% by July, 97% of our stores are open. Yung nagsara kasi talaga nasa mall because the malls were closed. So now that they've reopened, nakapagbukas na rin kami. We're not 24 hours, so we have lesser shifts. So we're now in the process of doing rotations with the managers especially. So it's really challenging, but our principle is to keep as many employed as we can. I don't think we're as badly hit as airlines. So retrenchment is a last resort.
And I think it also goes back to yung brand purpose of McDonald's. Yun, provide. Yes. So
Meron
we
din
go
dito,
for
how do you how do you intend to address fatigue of food delivery or increased consumption of home meal replacement once ECQ is lifted? Okay. I don't know if you mean by fatigue as in sawa factor dun sa menu items, but actually even within ECQ, we introduced spicy chicken burger, which is actually McSpicy. But we
mm.
did have lettuce, so because that's such a perishable, we had to choose the ingredients. But I think now that things are back a little more normal in terms of supply chain, more and more of the menu is available, so there'll be variety. Um, Menu is challenging actually, because you want to give variety, but at the same time, people kind of crave for what they couldn't have before in McDonald's. So it goes back to then their favorites. So we'll
That,
probably do it in sequence at the right time.
that Margot, also the challenge is the thing they're looking for affordability, no, but because they're more cash strapped now, so the challenge for many brands will be parang how do you now deliver on um, lower than affordable. So those are the questions that we were also trying to ponder on before. Parang you need to develop a new set of menu. Ano ba? It may not be necessarily addressed by size, but you need to really innovate these days, ano?
Mhm. There's a good question here. If we can still take this question.
Mm-mm.
Um, Hope to hear your insights with regard to competition in your industry. Would you say it is still a focus right now? What is the proper mindset on this? I like that question because as we put together our marketing, we had plans from before. And if you think about pre-COVID, really looking at what your competition is doing, especially price points, was parang a driving force. I really had to share my thoughts also with the marketing team, and I said, I don't think people care about that right now. Um, I think people just want to be safe. And it's
Mm-mm.
not
At
about being
minimum.
I'm safer or they're safest. I don't think it's about uh, um, competing and being more superior. I think it's the concern. So as a discipline, we always have a customer first mindset, and the competition is, well, they'll do what they have to do, but that's how that's the mindset we use. You first have to start with the consumer and know what they need,
Right.
then you address
Mm.
it. There's another there's another insight I gained in the discussions. Alam mo, Jermaine, um,
Mm.
kailangan very conscious din yung marketers yung differences across regions sa Pilipinas.
Mm. Mm.
So, maaring um, malakas yung delivery, di ba? Digital
Mm-mm.
is such a big thing, e-commerce is growing, blah, blah, blah. Pero siguro very Metro Manila centric yan, or key cities. Pag pumunta
Mm-mm.
ka talaga sa probinsya, um, baka medyo mahal din yung babayaran nilang delivery fee, yung
Mm.
ordinary consumer. So,
Right.
importante pa rin sa kanila mag-walk-in sa tindahan. Siguro magte-take out na lang. Uh,
Mm-mm.
pero hindi rin niya aaksayahin yung load niya para pumunta sa app o magpa-deliver. So,
Nagpa-deliver.
so better again, if you go back to the consumer and really understand their needs, I'm sure people will realize the differences.
So challenging, ano?
Mm-mm.
Oo. And we again the word is we need to stay agile and constantly listen and understand our consumers kasi it's still changing, ha. It is still they are still changing as we move along. Hanggat walang vaccine, talagang this might change still, no? So thank you so much, Margot. Oh, wow. So much to munch on or to ponder on as far as the presentation of Margot is concerned. Anyway, we will share the recording. It's so rich. I tell you, ako, I'm still processing a lot of the ideas that Margot presented. And we're so grateful that she was able to share with us the 6H, or ano ba yan, 6 pillars of how McDonald's is operating in these days. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, we move on to our next speaker. All right, here to share from the creative side. Okay, what are the insights from an advertising perspective naman? All right, so Rochelle, please take it away. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Jermaine. Thanks, Margot. I was craving so much McDonald's fries last weekend. I had like, I think, 2 packs, which was super, super yummy. So thanks. Thank you. All right. I hope everybody's doing safe and well. I hope everyone's safe at home and, is able to join us, and, your family stay safe as well. Okay. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about building meaningful brands here. And given all of the changes, all of the kind of context that Margot also talked about, we know that there is a lot of expectations being set forth by the consumers towards our brands. And really, the Philippines actually is one of those highest countries where the brands are expected to respond. And we really, I think there's no other time better for us to be able to do this. However, the way we do things, I think, really needs to change. We need to relook at our consumer, and we'll get to that. We need to relook at what we're saying. But for me, more than that, for us to really succeed, businesses need to change. It's not just the brand, it's not just the way we communicate. We have to go beyond that. Because if we want to build meaningful brands for the future, our businesses should be able to support that today and should be able to support that in the future as well. So I'll just go through some key questions that perhaps you could ask ourselves. But before that, I found this quote from Plato pretty interesting. The true creator of necessity, who is the mother of our invention. And without the needs for us to change, nothing will come up. And at this period in time, we are in that situation where there is no other way but for us to change. Now, when we want to change, we need to know that we would want to evolve. We have to reinvent ourselves, and most definitely, we would have to pivot the way we run our businesses, or even the way we communicate as brands. We need to be able to ask the question, how can we change our product or service? How can we improve this in order for us to be able to better address the needs of our consumers? And possibilities around this is really looking at how do we explore a portfolio shift to address those needs. We saw a bunch of brands be able to, shift if they were creating alcohol for drinking to keep it more for sanitation. And Brewdog was one of the brands that did that from Europe. Angkas Food did a great initiative to pivot from delivering or moving people to moving food and other services, which worked well for them. And it was about them understanding the needs of the consumers and, pivoting towards that. We also have to see the way we, deliver our product. Margot touched a lot on how it's shifting a little bit more to delivery. And that's because what people are need, and that's what, that's the experience that people are going through. E-commerce may be just as important, but I think it's also important for us to see how we can look at using sari-sari stores. We know that people don't want to walk more than a few steps away for the safety of themselves. And we know sari-sari stores are there. And perhaps we should see as FMCG brands or brands that are currently present there, how do you make our products more viable and more available there, and how do you make it work for what consumers are looking for? Is it a differentiated pack price or a differentiated format of pack? But at the same time, for brands that are not there, how can we leverage these moms who are selling there, who are also looking for some augmented income given the economic difficulties that's about to happen? Can we look at them as some sort of resellers for ourselves, just for us to get our product out to the consumers, but at the same time support the community? Next, I think as marketers, we need to change the way we let consumers experience our brands. I mean, we know accessibility is very difficult right now, and we need to be interesting and innovative in the ways by which we allow them to experience this. We've seen how museums around the world offered lockdown experiences where they made all of their pieces of art available via Facebook Lives or even walkthroughs, just for people to still stay connected to what the museum has to offer. But it was, again, a pivot in the way they would do their business. We also need to find a way to be able to support the community and finding solutions for that. Uber Eats, for example, is trying to encourage more people to eat local. We saw for fans of Mayor Vico Soto, we saw how he worked with Food Panda to kind of help the community by giving jobs to people to be riders or drivers, to again fit the need of the time, but also work for a solution for our community. As marketers, we also need to change the way we communicate. We need to better understand that communication in this day and age has to be purposeful. There was a mention, earlier of how we are so in tune with current affairs right now, and that's true because people are looking for information that's useful and purposeful. And just as brands, we have to make sure what we are communicating is important to them and actually makes sense to what they are going through with their lives. Everybody loved the ad that Margot showed us because it was uplifting. It created the sense of, inspiration for me to go on with my life, show my love to my mom, but it was purposeful in that way as well. Now, for us to be able to transform our business, I think the key thing that we have to do is to really relook at our consumers. I mean, if we did any piece of research, even on March 1 to 5, it was the week right before we all mostly went on lockdown. The people today are very different. We need to see them for who they are, what they are experiencing, and what they are feeling again in the now and in the near future. We need to understand and go back to seeing what they need. Most of the brands I think that we work with, we're really at the top of this triangle already, talking about self-actualization and esteem. But what we have to do is look at how our brands actually deliver to the needs. Again, people are needs safety, physiologicals. They're worried about how the economy is going to go and how they're going to pay their next bill. They're also in this very vulnerable stage where they don't feel very safe, and how us as brands should be able to find these pieces of information and create communications and experiences against that. We know their needs are changing, and from that we also know that their habits are going to change. They say that most habits take about 21 days for us to form. If you want to stop biting your nails, just stop it for 21 days. As a nail biter, that's a very, very difficult task. But now that we've been on lockdown for more than 75 days and a couple of more days to come, we need to relook at how people's rituals and habits are going to change. Dining out is going to totally change the game. People are going to prefer eating at home. Getting to your daily activities, getting to work is going to change. And how does that all kind of impact the way we communicate with our consumers really has to be given a lot of thought. Next is connected to that is how do we find the new gaps? We know that people's behaviors are changing, their habits are going to change, their needs and expectations are going to change as well. But we have to be able to sit and understand what are those gaps that we can fulfill, what are those white spaces that we can pivot towards to address for our consumers to continuously find the benefit of our brands. We also need to be able to understand their expectations. With the world that's changing, people's expectations are a lot at the bottom right now. For them, as long as I get the baseline services that I need, they're happy. But what we have to do is to be able to address that and also provide better experiences against those expectations. Again, we're in a very vulnerable stage and we want to make sure people are uplifted. And for us, that's what we have to do. In creating services for us, we need to make sure that these services continue to be made seamless. We don't need to add another problem to our consumers and our customers. And for that, we need to understand the expectations they have, match it, or do even better. I think, and through this whole process, we have to really be willing to test and learn. We have to keep on trying, and this is a little bit difficult for us because we tend to be big companies that are not very agile. But like as Jermaine mentioned, it's important for us to be agile in the now. We have to be able to change the way we do things just so we can meet the needs of tomorrow. And as much as we say business transformation is to come, there's no other moment for us better than to do it now. In fact, we need to do it now in order for us to really survive. Because again, as I believe that to build meaningful brands for the future, it's not just our brands, it's not just the way we communicate, but it's the businesses that need to change. So actually, that's it. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Roshan. I'm going to change the format a bit, just so we can also go through the presentations of Miggy and Miguel. But
Mhm.
before that, I'd like Trish to kindly flash the QR code that we have so that our participants can already start. Please help us by doing this evaluation survey. You're going to help us make our webinars better. So we'd like to hear from you. So can we just flash this for a bit, and we can go to take one question and then move on to Miggy. All right. But thank you so much, Roshan, for your presentation. Again, it dovetails with what Margot presented. That businesses, again, the first thing that what happened to most businesses is to really transform and realize that they need to be agile, no? And one way of doing that is listening to your customers or understanding your customers to understand what could be the potential uh, innovation or how do we address their needs, no? Okay, so let's see. Um, question. With businesses all going online, big or small, how can you stand out, especially to the big players who will have more resources? This is coming from Leia Chua.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, how can you stand out, especially versus the big players who
Sure.
will have more resources?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like how you would look at doing traditional forms of advertising, TV or digital. You have to be able to find a relevant message to stand out. You might not have as big a budget, but if you know who your consumer is, you know what are their struggles currently, and you're able to create a relevant message against that. That's, I think, the best way by which you can condition to stand out. Think when it comes to marketing, there are some fundamentals that will stay the same. It's really about understanding the new consumer that has to shift to the way we do marketing.
Okay. So that's from Leia Chua. Okay. And then uh, I could see Margot answering some of the questions of our of our audience. Thank you, Margot. Uh, do you think advertising will play a big or small role at this given moment? Okay, this is coming from Sia B.
I think advertising plays a very big role. So in two ways. For the consumers, it needs to show some sort of sense of normalcy. They still need to know that things are going well. However, at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, a lot of brands have said, I don't want to say anything and they're opting out. But we've seen through research, it's important for brands to be speaking right now because through any past economic downturn, the brands that survive are the ones who are speaking or the ones who are making their message known. I think tied to that as well in this specific kind of crisis, where there's so much change happening, people are changing their rituals and habits. And if you're not there, you're going to be forgotten as people augment. Even if I was using a brand before the pandemic, but if I'm not being reminded of it or if I'm not able to see it at the store, I'm not getting messages from them anymore. Eventually, it will be forgotten because of this 70-day span that I've not been able to connect with them. So key for us to remember, key to provide normalcy and really winning the game of marketing during a crisis. Brands need to be present and need to be speaking. You need to be speaking differently. You need to be showing different things, creating different experiences, but you need to be present.
Okay, uh, we will get back to that again later on. For now, I'd like to move on to Miggy. All right, so Miggy's broadcasting from Singapore and coming from an essential non-food business, we'd like to hear about his thoughts on this topic, building meaningful brands through consumer insighting.
Thank
Yes,
you,
thank you,
Jermaine. Can you
Miggy.
hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, with that, I actually like to start with one of the introductions to Miguel a while ago. Jermaine said the number one solution to problem solving is listening. So I think I'll be talking about that a lot, especially that my job is all about listening to the consumer. So I'm very grateful that in the past 6 years in P&G, I've managed to talk to a lot of consumers, and I've probably spent about 20% of my career just talking and listening to them. And in the next couple of slides, I'll be showing how P&G brands like Ariel, Downy, Safeguard, Pampers, Gillette, Head and Shoulders, and others have done that throughout the years. I'll be taking you guys to a bit of history, especially of what we've done in the past 100 years, because COVID is one of those world situations where previous generations have faced even much worse. World wars, pandemics, a lot of even famine, and how they managed to go through this. And I hope at the end of the presentation, you guys, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, if there's another world situation where hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does, we know how to adapt. The world has gone through this before, and hopefully I'll just take you through a quick history lesson. I'll be sharing a lot of stories on how brands have adapted to situations like these. So I'll take you through this photo. This photo on the left, I'm thankful I'm part of a company that actually pioneered market research. So in 1924, P&G was one of the first companies in the world that made market research. And it was pioneered by a PhD person. I think he was studying behavioral sciences. And he pioneered also a photo in the 1940s where we hired a lot of women, about 3,000, to interview door to door. So it's classic old school interview that even at this day and age is still very, very relevant. I encourage a lot of people. There was one question a while ago: how do we start getting these insights? The most basic answer that will eventually be the same answer 100 years from now is just to listen. Whether it's a face-to-face conversation, an FGD, a social listening tool, it's all about listening. Okay? So I think the first tip that I will give you guys is adapt your brand depending on the changing times to keep relevant, but always keep your brand DNA. Margot mentioned a bit something on brand DNA a while ago. It's something that will always be there regardless of whatever situation. It will change a bit, but it's how you were born. It's how the brand was born. It was the original purpose. I'll talk about Ivory Soap. You guys probably know about Ivory Soap. It was very famous back then, 20, 30 years ago. It's actually our first P&G brand. The first ad on the left you'll see was a brand one of our first advertisements just at the turn of the 20th century. The brand DNA was all about purity and floats. So how did we listen and how did we create this innovation? All soaps back then, when there were still a lot of bathtubs, they always sank. So all the soaps would always sink to the bottom of the bathtub, and people would look for it, but they couldn't find it. And by the time they get it, it's all melted already. So we just listened. William Procter and James Gamble just listened, and they created the first soap that floats. And back then, your soap for your body was also the soap for dishwashing, your soap for detergents. It was an all-in-one soap. That's why you see this man in an advertisement. That was also the expansion of all the states from the east going to California, Texas. And it was a soap that you can bring anywhere. It was pure and it floats. And then back to the Industrial Revolution. Who would have imagined a male to be the face of a soap brand? Usually right now it's majority women. And this was an advertisement catered to men who were working blue-collar jobs in the factories and whatnot. So it was adjusted to men. And then go to my favorite ad is this ad from Ivory in World War II. So in World War II, one of the toughest situations the world has faced probably in the past 100 years. A lot of the men went to war. And in United States, the factories creating all the tanks and weapons needed workers. So they looked to women. And you see the big idea: keep your beauty on duty. So even if you're a woman, and it's a great opportunity for women to start really to contribute to the war efforts and have their own jobs, they still kept their beauty. And Ivory, across these three ads in the span of half a century, they still kept their brand DNA of purity, but always changing. So that's one thing you guys should consider. The second is even in the toughest situations the world is facing, find how your brand can add meaning in the everyday. So I want you guys to remember that, meaning in the everyday. If you guys have heard of Gillette, Gillette is the number one shaving brand and men's grooming brand in the world. We before that, Gillette was totally owned by a different company, and P&G just purchased it around 1999 or 2000. Gillette wasn't famous back then before World War One. Gillette was kind of expensive, and sikat pa yung mga barber groomings and all that. But one thing happened that changed Gillette to become one of the most profitable and biggest brands in the world. World War One happened, and in World War One, one of the things that the US Army mandated was even if you're fighting head over heels and you're in a muddy trench, you must be groomed like a clean fighter. So they invented and they adapted. They made this US Army Gillette khaki set, the photo on the right, that each US Army service member can bring no matter what situation. That totally changed everything for the band. Who would have imagined that a world war, one of the toughest situations in the world, would have been the gold mine for Gillette? And because of that, millions of soldiers had Gillette in all their pockets, and even their fighting, they still had a clean shave. I think the third one is finding out how brands can play a role in consumers' habits and practices. So Margot and Roshan talked about this a while ago, and a lot of them are always in their daily habits and practices. Okay, I like one photo of Roshan a while ago where it was the Le Whopper de la quarantine, like how you can make a Burger King Whopper at home. So habits and practices, no matter what your business and service is, you guys should know what are the habits and practices towards that. I'll give you an example. When Pampers was created in the 1960s, the number one problem that the inventor wanted to solve was changing diapers is a hassle. It's so time consuming. And when cloth diapers were still famous back then, that represented 99% of all diapers, it was so hard to clean. It was so hard to put on. And because of that, they invented the first disposable diaper, which is Pampers. And the reason why I think this was so pivotal in the daily habits and practices of a mom was because if you were to create a product which saved her much more time on changing diapers, but still delivered the same quality needed for a baby to have a sleepless night, that would be amazing. So it was time that's giving back. And fast forward 50 years, that ad you see of a woman, that was one of the first ads of Pampers in the 1960s without color TV. And the ad you see on the right is one of the most recent ads of Pampers. It's a dad taking care of the baby. And that's actually very evident in this situation right now, where in the daily habits and practices of your consumers, the dad is now taking an even more important role in the household practices. And I think that's where eventually this generation will adapt to that. I think there will come a point in time where every father in the world can change a diaper the same way a mother can. And another one is this share the load. In the Philippines, we call it one wash. We created a campaign back then, if you're familiar, the finally where every woman would always laba sila naglalaba, and Filipino women actually are one of the world in the world who spend the most time on laundry. Now we created a campaign. It started in India and we replicated it in Philippines of share the load. It's very similar to now where if you're living in a household, hopefully the father, the husband, the brother will do the exact same chore that a woman would do. So I think in your daily habits and practices, things what will change. I like the video of Margot a while ago when it was creating the na lockdown tayo ma. And in that every second by second frame, it was talking about what were daily habits and practices that the son actually appreciated the mom. So think of those of what are the daily habits and practices that you guys can influence. Another one is don't underestimate the small consumer problems. So I like talking about consumer problems because at the end of the day, all brands will solve something. So be really, really addicted to what problem you're solving. Okay. Now, when I say small consumer problems, examples of these are, it's not what your brand is really creating. It's not 80% of your revenue. It's probably just 20%, 10%. An example of one of the things I said a while ago were these other services that McDonald's suddenly branched out to, like the buy it frozen food, frozen chicken nuggets, or even delivery services, which I probably estimate will not be bulk of the businesses. Even for brands like now, for Safeguard, for example. Safeguard is the number one soap in the Philippines. It always has been. And majority of that is really for your body. Your hands, washing your hands is probably only like 5 to 10% of soap consumption, and your balanced body would be 90 to 95% of the soap consumption. So karamihan talaga ng dyan is for the body. But we made sure to highlight these two body parts the most to drive halo, parang butterfly effect to your whole brand. And we did it 10 years ago. We're doing it again today. We partnered up with the Department of Health in 2009 when H1N1 happened. We really became the number one brand in the Philippines to drive Global Hand Washing Day. And it was that small consumer problem of a soap that really we wanted people to halo back. Fast forward now, we're doing the same thing. We're partnering up with TV Patrol on 5 steps for safe hand washing. And we're partnering up with a lot of institutions like the Red Cross of how hand washing can, that small insight, you can build to a bigger campaign as long as we're safe in each other's hands. And we're partnering up with our campaign called the PNG Safeguards Bayani Hands project with Red Cross. So it's that small washing hand problem that can build into a big campaign and add value to everyone. I have last two slides. Another one is remember the other parts of your brand. Roshan talked about it a while ago on a white space. These other parts of your brands need to step up and be heroed. So if dine-in services for McDonald's was the hero before, bulk of your business, bulk ng negosyo. Now in these situations, you have to adapt. What can be other parts of my business that we're just second place, third place, di masyado pinapansin, that I can hero right now? So I'll give you some examples of how other parts of the businesses that we amplified and elevated the execution. So Ariel, the number one powder detergent brand in the Philippines, we just suddenly changed and amplified the insight where we leverage removes 99.9% of germs. And this is a tough challenge for Ariel. As for people who buy their own laundry, everyone knows Ariel is expensive. It's one of the most expensive detergent brands. And it's tough for you to persuade the consumer to buy an expensive detergent brand during these situations. And Ariel is probably less about 8 pesos in a sari-sari store. One of our competitors is 5 pesos. But it's not about competition. It's not about getting, doing this, doing that. It's all about how you solve the consumer problem better. If my competition serves that better, then shame on me. I have to level up and elevate that insight. So in this situation, even if you're the most expensive brand, even if you're the number one powder detergent, don't be complacent. How can you serve it better? So we partnered up even for Joy dishwashing liquid. I can say the same. Joy Lemon and Joy Calamansi, they're probably the number one, number two, if you can see in a supermarket or a sari-sari store. But we elevated our Joy Antibac with Safeguard. We used the Safeguard model of partnering up with PAMET, the 99.9% of germs, which almost all of you guys probably know growing up. And we innovated. Another thing is globally, we expanded our hand sanitizer to battle COVID-19. So before, hand sanitizer was very, very small. A lot of you probably don't know that Safeguard had the hand sanitizer, really? So these are the small parts of the business that dati lang hindi mo pinapansin, but now it's time to step up. Okay? Last slide. I think this is the most important slide. Never forget to ask the so what. Ano ngayon? Nagbebenta ka ng sabon, you're selling chicken nuggets, you're selling a Coca-Cola, but so what? At the end of the day, how does it matter in my life? I think that na lockdown tayo mga campaign was one of the best examples of how a fast food brand, a food brand, can really change the life and how we can do that. I'll talk some examples like here. In 2012, we partnered up with the Olympics. The big idea was the hardest job in the world is the best job in the world. Being a mom, being a parent. And how can a detergent brand, a diaper brand, help that? if I can give much more time, saving time on detergent, saving time on diapers, saving time on dishwashing, I can give back more time to support my kid to eventually go to the Olympics. How can a Gillette shaver disposable bring a bond between a father and son, especially a son having the first time shaving? How can a menthol, a Vicks brand, um, have emotional insight, especially the times you were sick when you were a kid? How can a diaper brand can help have a sleepless night, a comfortable night, 3 a.m. sleep? And how can a brand always, in Philippines we call whisper, really change the way we look at women and what does it mean to say like a girl? So whatever you're selling, it can be as simple as a soap. It can be as complicated as an insurance item. It can be anything. But always ask, so what? Ano yung impact ng buhay na, sa buhay niya? At the end of the day, I like what everyone has said. That I like what Jermaine said in the beginning, where the number one role of all brands is to create meaning and add value to people's lives. So never ever forget about that. And it's the responsibility of any marketer or business owner to do that. Not just earn money, but add value and help people's lives every day. Okay. So with that, I'll give it back to Jermaine. Oh, Jermaine, you're mute.
Yes, thank you, Miggy. It was Philip Kotler who said that. I'm just quoting him. So that's really the name of the game these days, meaning providing meaning. Philip Kotler also mentioned brand beneficence. Okay, what is the uh, it should your brand should transcend the well-being of a person, of your community, your society, and of the planet, something like that. No, so nandun na ngayon tayo. We're moving towards that direction, and it all becomes more relevant these days. Okay, Miggy, I think I saw one question that you can probably
Mm,
address muna, no, in the Q&A here,
mm.
no. How will non-essential products, luxury items in this case, maintain relevance and luxury items, okay, maintain relevance and generate sales during these times that mostly all consumers go back to the basic needs?
Okay, it's a very important question. Um, right now, the businesses that are affected the most are luxury items, the one you would find in a department store, a duty free. Um, but apart from the price, always remember how your product adds value regardless of the price. So if I were to give some examples in Korea, Korea is one of the best facial skincare markets in the world. And you guys know there's a lot of Korean skincare trends here that are very expensive, premium priced. And then they just decided, how can we stay relevant at this day? How can you still be beautiful at home? How can you have your spa day at home? How can you have a hair salon day at home? When I'm facing you guys at Zoom right now in front of 200 people, how do I make sure my skin doesn't have pimples or my skin is very um, uh, makinis? So even regardless of what price you're paying, always make sure how it adds value. And at the end of the day, like Ariel, even if it's like 50% more expensive than the number two detergent brand, how can you add value and people are still willing to pay that price? But the number one thing I would end with this is it's our responsibility. If you're paying a premium price, make sure you give them superior premium value. You cannot give a product just because it's expensive. Make sure the consumer really feels that it's worth it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One last question, Miggy. Uh, Also, there's a question here from John Matthew Malabayabas.
Mm-hmm.
I won't talk about yung Tide commercial, but maybe if you're a multi-brand business,
Yes.
all right,
Yes.
how do you ensure that you don't? I guess parang the question is you don't cannibalize
Cannibalize. Yeah.
on each other uh, in addressing the customer or the changing needs of customers.
Got it.
How do you
Clear.
maintain a balance? Parang ganon.
It's hard to tell you. Personally, I work on a portfolio also with a lot of hair care brands, and detergents are also a lot of them. I think it's all about the brand DNA, like what I said a while ago.
Yes.
Brand DNA, equity, and positioning. Pag
Positioning.
sinabi mo, pag sinabi mo Tide, one of the first things that you would say is that campaign, gulat ka, no? And then it's all white, 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 white. And then pag sinabi mo Ariel, one of our things that we also want to do is that superior cleaning and superior stain protection against that especially on washing machines. And you also have other low tier brands. So if you really study an industry, let's say for example food, and I would quote some of the competitors Margo has, the Jollibee Food Corporation, where they have a different cuisine, or a skincare brand where it's on acne, a skincare brand on whitening, a skincare brand on anti-aging. Be obsessed with what problem you're solving. And once you're obsessed with what problem you're solving, you know how consumers would differentiate it.
At the beginning, syempre, dapat when you come up with multiple brands, the positioning of each brand should not be, cannibalizing each other in the first
Exactly.
place, right? So anyway, I'd like to move on. Thank you so much, Miggy, for
Thank
sharing
you.
your so many uh, tips for brand marketeers. Okay, we move on to Miguel. All right. So Miguel will help us visualize the how we can operate in the future. And Miguel, take it away. Thank you.
Hi, Jermaine. Thank you. You can hear me? Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So, do you see my screen now? Okay, so let me start, right? So, how do we building meaningful brands through a consumer insight? I'm going to take a different approach to it, I guess. Uh, I guess just to give you some context, um, I come from a company called Ignite House of Innovation, and we're a very unique company in the sense that we're at the nexus of corporate innovation, venture capital, and igniting human beings for their greatest potential. Now, a lot of people ask me why did I join this company after I've spent the last 4 or 5 years being a innovation consultant for a lot of companies, and like if there was something that I was searching for in an organization, it's this having a company that's obsessed with questioning. All right, and I found that with this company Ignite. So there, for me, in order to innovate, no matter which context you're in, or which industry you work in, questions are vital in order to do that. In fact, if you think about it, questions, not ideas, are the most fundamental unit of exploration. So there's a common misconception by a lot of people, that as they go, like they try to do innovation and they're obsessing with all these ideas and they're trying to figure out, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? But if you think about it, um, great innovations are actually rooted on great questions. And I talking to Jermaine about doing this talk, and it brought me back to this obsession with questions that I have had over the last maybe 2 3 years, realizing that so many companies want to innovate, but none of them are willing to ask any great questions. And if you think about it, great innovators are actually great question askers. In fact, um, Hal Gregerson. He's a co-author of the Innovator's DNA. It's this a seminal book on like innovation. He co-wrote it with Clay Christensen and Jeff Dyer, and they talk a lot about the role of questioning in like innovation. In fact, um, they call this. It seems that the ability to ask the right questions has enabled business leaders to adapt in a rapidly changing marketplace. And but by having this ability to to identify new opportunities and fresh possibilities, only happen to people that are actually great askers. In fact, there seems to be this shift, at least with some companies, that from being the leader with all the answers to being the leader with all the questions. And it's something that I truly believe in. If we know how to ask great questions, we then can be more innovative. So how does this play into what we do in Ignite? And personally, it's something that I really believe in. So we have this this concept called CX. All right. Now CX is actually short for customer, human, and I. All right. So let me just expound on that a bit. Um, as much as we're asking questions, we also have to be conscious of the type of questions that we're asking. So just think about it. When you're doing like market research, we have to look at a customer level. We're probably asking questions like, what do you like or don't like about our product? Or what features should we add to our service? Or how much do you want to spend for a product like this? All right. Now, when you ask these questions, you often get very generic, um, obvious answers. All right. And this happens a lot. A lot of people that want to do market research, they're being very product centric in the way that um, um, they're asking questions with their customers. Now, the reason we have this GX idea is because from customers, you should be now looking at your customers as human beings. Now, even at the level of human beings, you're probably asking questions like, what are the most important things in your life? Or maybe could you share a story about the last time you felt this way, where there's this shared experience maybe from a product that that is very familiar to you. Now, a lot of people call this like empathy. A lot of my background, going to the D school and being I guess I wouldn't say an expert, but really fully immersed in human-centered design and design thinking over the last few years, is that um, it doesn't just end with empathy. It just doesn't end with understanding um, your customers as human beings. What we're seeing also is that um, these types of questions at the customer level, at the human level, should should also be explored at the eye level. What are the types of questions I'm asking myself? Okay, so what are these types of questions? You probably ask yourself, what can I give to um, I mean, what is my genius around it? What is it in me that is good, that is gifted, that remains in me no matter how much the world changes, and that will allow me to stay relevant and keep being a force of good, whether it be yesterday, today, tomorrow, and for many more after. Now, these types of questions, these are very deep, important questions. We have to keep asking ourselves why. Just think about it. If you want to be able to grit it out, if you want to be able to, to work on innovation projects, which get really, really messy. I mean, it gets really, really messy. One of the things you have to realize is that you have to care about the problem you're trying to solve. All right. I mean, if you're not caring about the problem you're trying to solve, then you won't be able to solve it to your greatest potential. So again, yes, there are questions we ask at the level of the customer and as human beings, but we should also look into the questions we ask ourselves. Okay, because when we think about it, when we're doing like marketing, okay, so we do a lot of research. Okay, probably check stuff online. We'll do some interviews, FGDs, things like this, and then we have things like the design thinking comes in, and now um, doing empathy is a big buzzword in most corporations. But I think about it, empathy just isn't enough. Empathy is about being able to put yourself in the shoes of your customer or your user, or it's really about knowing the pain of others. And if you think about it, this empathy has to become actionable, and that's what we know as compassion. We have to be able to, that um, when we're compassionate, when we care enough about our customer, the human beings that we impact, that we want to act on it. Okay, um, a lot of the time when I do like a lot of inciting activities, what happens is a lot of people ask me, when do you know you've hit a good insight? And I say, when you read that insight, you just get this sudden urge to like get out of your chair. All right. You get this sudden urge to ask, to do something about it. And it's almost reflexive. To some extent, you're not conscious of it. But if you get this feeling na parang, uy, parang pwede to ah. Parang, hey, I think I can do something about this. You've probably reached a point where that insight then becomes actionable. All right. And lastly, after compassion, this will lead to love, and love really is about knowing the pain of others and so wanting to give the very best in myself to heal their pain. And this ties in perfectly with what we talk about in Chi X. Because like in Ignite, and it's something I know we mentioned a while ago that problem solving is listening, and actually that's actually, that's actually evolved for me. I think now problem solving is not just listening, but problem solving is connecting. Right? And in order to connect with your customer, with your user, you actually have to fall in love with the problem. Because the most powerful insights and most powerful brand connections, as with all human connections, must come from our deepest truths and highest potential. So you're probably wondering, okay, I'm talking a lot about these inspirational things, but the reality is that it can't stay in the realm of inspiration. It just can't stay in the realm of being a TED talk or something like that. You have to find ways to make this actionable. If you think about it, you only get good at something, okay, by actually practicing it. I like to say fluency through frequency. Okay. If you've been to any of my talks before, this is something that I've been preaching about. It's because you can't keep things in the realm of inspiration. You have to be able to do it. Just look at all of these goats, right? Goats are the greatest of all time. So let's say, just to be a little bit more recent, with Michael Jordan, all right, he he wouldn't just read about basketball theories or like watch things on TV. He would actually go out in the court and practice and practice and practice. And it sounds a little cliched, but practice does make perfect, and we have to be able to apply what we're doing, at a corporate level, all right, and really find ways to create this frequency around it. So, um, so let me just end by saying this. We developed this little formula in Ignite, and it's this. It's PB times FX percentage WF. What does this mean? Okay. PB is practices and behavior multiplied by frequency multiplied by the percentage of the workforce that will adopt these practices and behaviors. Think about it. Too many times we look at brands as as a flash of genius, the realm of the gifted. But what we really want is institutional practice, the capacity to do meaningful innovations over and over again. So if you look at this formula, okay, what happens a lot is this. Okay, you're probably learning new practices and behaviors. Let's say in corporate L&D, so learning and development. You're learning these practices and behaviors. But when you're done with that workshop and you don't have an opportunity to apply it, I've been in the situation like a lot of times. So we now have to find ways to create frequency in your organization to actually do these practices and behaviors. And by the more that you do it, more people get involved in it, and you get more people in the workforce um, to actually adopt it. So what happens is, I've worked with some pretty innovative companies, and what I've seen is that even if you're considered innovative, it stays at the level where it's very. You have all these superstars in the company that are bringing everyone up, but there has to be ways for you to to be able to adapt it frequently within the organization, and then from a workforce level as well, get as much people in your organization um, into doing these practices and behaviors frequently. If you actually look at this, this is what we call a TV meter, short for time value meter, where from if you look at the left side, we have access, information, knowledge, understanding, belief, attitude, behavior, habit, and culture. For you to get at the level of habit and culture, you 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 need to put in the time and frequency to get there. And I guess this is something that we really believe. When I keep being asked, how do I be more innovative? And I just say, look, you have this concept, you have to find ways to apply it and learn from it. And that's something that's been my mission over the last 3-4 years, really, is to how do we get more people not just to practice things, but to do it frequently, and to get as much people within your organizations to do it. So just some key takeaways. Again, we talked about GX, right? It's this ability to I like to call it also problem discovery, finding these problems and questions that you can ask around them being customers, human beings, and also asking yourself certain questions. The next thing, always fall in love with the problem. When you're in love with the problem, you will grit it out. You will find ways to make those innovations happen, to to make an impact in the lives of people. And lastly, by following the simple formula of PB times F times percentage workforce, you can actually make an impact in the lives of in your organization, wherein you will truly become more innovative, and you will have a larger, bigger impact in the lives of people. All right. So, well, I'm done with that, Jermaine.
Yes, thank you so much, Miguel.
Mhm.
I think we are hearing a common thread across all our speakers, our panelists today. We, can we have uh, I think Margot had to leave. Apologies, because nasa essential business talaga. She's having back-to-back meetings, but nonetheless, I think she answered most of the questions of our audience. May we have Miggy, Roshan, and yeah, Miggy and Roshan also, please. Yes. While we're doing the Q&A, I hope that everyone has the QR code, and if you can please just accomplish the evaluation survey that we have as we wrap up. We'll just do the Q&A and then we can wrap up. Now, but I'd like to thank our panelists, because I think what I'm hearing is that uh, problem, it's a source for inspiration on your potential either next innovation idea, or probably your ano ba content as well, how to balance your portfolio of brands, uh, falling in love with the problem. I like that. Miggy also mentioned there's no problem that's small. Tama ba yun, Miggy? uh, there's no small problem that you cannot fall in love with. Right? And I think, Roshan, that's also how we will be looking for white spaces as well, right? Talagang in any crisis, of course there are problems, but we look at it as an opportunity for us to serve our customers better. Maybe we can have a few questions from the audience. Okay. PNG. With the current situation, and in the case of PNG, which uses a house of brands, oh, house of brands kayo, no? Is it practical to offer a new product amidst this pandemic, considering that a lot of health-related brands are already created? Is it too late ba daw
Yeah.
to create new
I'll,
brands?
I'll try to make the question a bit bigger so it's relevant for everyone. It's hard. It's hard to launch a new brand in this tough situation, especially if we're about to hit an economic recession. It's hard, but I'm not saying it's impossible. One of the best examples right now is Apple, who just released one of the most affordable iPhones they've had the past 5 or 4 years. So a cell phone, you don't really need a new one right now. But one of the most profitable companies in the world decided to go ahead with that Apple launch. I think the trick is if you're gonna launch a new product at this tough situation, like what everyone said, be obsessed with the consumer problem and how can you deliver it and deliver the solution in a different way versus the others. If you can find that small gold mine that's not existing right now, it's still possible.
Would others have any thoughts on that? Is it is it impossible to launch a new brand these days?
Um, well, on mine, I don't think it'll be hard, but I don't think it's impossible. In the sense that I guess if you if you're launching a brand to maybe to problem solve around maybe a new product, it might
Mm,
be hard. But if you anchor it on not just needs, but on things that people really care about, it will allow you to like pivot your business. It will
Mhm.
also allow you to come up with new ideas. Again, it's not about the product, it's about what needs are you trying to solve. So if you have an ability just to bring things back into what the needs of your consumers, of your users are, you can come up with a lot of business ideas. Then it will just be a matter of trying to test it, see how viable can we keep this. Is this something actually worth doing? But
Mhm.
again, if you're anchored in
at this
needs,
point in
again,
time.
yep,
Yep.
And there's a lot of mm,
and actually, it's challenging times, but hell, there's so much more opportunities. I feel there's going to be a new wave of like tech solutions that will be coming out soon. Because these are people that are going to be focusing on on these new needs, these new normal things. So we may have a new wave of businesses coming up.
tech solutions because contactless, no, mga kailangan, that's the need, no. One question for probably Roshan, okay, from a messaging standpoint, is it since the Philippines market is quite sensitive these days, how do brands ensure that they don't hit a nerve?
Um, I mean, it's a tough one, right? Because we know it is a very, very sensitive environment. I think we just need to know that when we look at the material, as consumers who are going through the exact same problem that a lot of people are going through, we need to understand how we feel about it. So we do have to watch out for us being insensitive, tone deaf, and manage against that and make sure that the communications, again, the safest ones are those that are purposeful and I think uplift and inspire.
Mm,
However, at the end of the day, just like any other campaign, when we launch it, we have to be ready with a backup plan in case things go wrong. Which I will say, one never knows until you launch a campaign.
mm, mm. And from a business standpoint, okay, I'd like to go back to the presentation of Margot kanina. Ponderable sa akin to eh. Sabi niya, recovery is during second quarter, all right? And then rebound is by 2021. I think I think Margot with the rest of their consultants in McDonald's painted for us a picture on how we should move forward or plan forward. But anything can happen still because the landscape is changing, and we're just really hoping that with all of the inputs of our experts today, we can move forward and become more meaningful. But do we need to recalibrate as we move along? Is that the case? How does that happen? Keep on listening.
I mean, yeah, I think everybody will agree. Keep on listening. Keep attuned to your consumer, your customer, but also for brands to be willing to possibly test and keep on learning from also all of our actions that we might do.
Mm-mm. Any parting words before we close this session? Any advice? If there's one advice that you'd like to give our audience today in order for them to stay meaningful, stay agile din ba? Okay. What would that be kaya?
Um, I'll start. Yeah. Well, for me, um, I guess some parting words really just to don't underestimate the power of questioning, the
Mm,
power of questions, and realize that questions is that's what's going to fuel any impact that you're going to have in the lives of people. So just keep a very open mind to to the questions that you ask. Be more conscious about it. Be intentional with the questions. Don't ask questions for the sake of asking questions, but ask questions with intentionality and see what
Mm-mm.
type of impact um, um, uh, you can make in the world.
Yes. Ask questions. The why. Why then, ano?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Of
Yes.
course, yeah.
Other advice, parting words, Roshan and Miggy?
Roshan,
I
you
think,
can go first.
thanks, Miggy. I think for me, it's a little bit it's a little bit personal, but I think we all have to be responsible. We are all members of this bigger global community. We've all never gone through what we are going through right now. As brands, I think it's more important for us to really look at that. Um, we, as you know, think questions are coming in. How do we look at sales and stuff? I think it's about what is our responsibility to the community, to the world, to each other, and act for that, act against that. And I think that to me would just be as responsible brands, responsible businesses. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Miguel and Roshan. If there's one takeaway that we'd recommend to the 200 plus attendees here is tomorrow, kind of write down what business and service you're working for, what you think the problem you're solving is right now, and how you can add meaning in today. And please, 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 probably in the next few weeks, talk to your consumers, ask the right questions with intent. There's one thing you have to do: talk to them. I think that's the duty of any brand owner who wants to make it meaningful.
Yes, talk to your customers. And also, ako, can I also give a parting word? Yung brand purpose baga, no? Brand purpose, don't, parang, it's about time that we reflect on our brand purpose and think about yung sinasabi ni Philip Kotler na brand beneficence. What is our contribution in making this world a better place, health and well-being, society, global. Ika nga, no? So, wow, thank you so much. The hours passed. And in closing, I've been following Simon Sinek pre and during these COVID days, and he shared recently that we need to be optimistic. Being optimistic is different from being positive. He said that being positive has an element of being in denial of the negatives in the current situation. Being optimistic means realizing that not all is well, but we will figure this out, that we will be able to ride it out, that it's part of the journey. It is hard, difficult, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. As to when that light will shine, we will know. Though life may not be the same afterwards, what we need to do is we need to adapt to the changing times, which I think, the likes of McDonald's has illustrated for us. So we hope that this webinar helped you in a way that your brand will be more meaningful to your customers to adapt to the changing times. Thank you to our panelists, Margot, who just left us, uh, Miggy De Jesus, Roshan Nandwani, Miguel Arañas. Thank you so much. Thank you to our
Thank you,
sponsors,
Jermaine.
Thank you.
our
Thank you, Trish.
partners,
Thanks,
and
Jermaine.
yes, join us again and please check the announcements. We have our next webinar will be on June 11, and it's about media and content insights moving forward. Okay, so this is Jermaine. I'd like to say thank you and God bless everyone. Let's all stay purposeful, meaningful, look for the problems because in those problems are nuggets of opportunities. See you June 11th. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.